Operation Red Dog, Chapter 8, The Kuck Klux Klan, or History as Fanfiction for Nerds. Historically, there were three different sequential clans, each one somewhat ideologically distinct. The first clan was founded in Tennessee on December 24, 1865, by 6 former officers of the Confederate Army. The name was most likely delivered from the Greek word kaiklos, which means circle. Although there was little organizational structure above the local level, a notable feature of many failed right-wing movements, nevertheless, similar groups rose across the South and adopted the same name and methods. The organization is known for its bizarre nomenclature. The titles and designations were first laid out in the original clan's prescripts of 1867 and then revamped half a century later with William J. Simmons' Cloran of 1916. Cloran is a clan term for a book of rules, ceremonies, and procedures. The leader of the Reconstruction-era clan was called a Grand Wizard. States were referred to as realms. A realm was ruled by a Grand Dragon and assisted by 8 Hydras. Counties were called dominions. These were governed by a Grand Titan and 6 Furies. Sounds like something from World of Warcraft or from Heroes of Might and Magic. The clan declined in strength, in part because of its failure to achieve its political goals, in part because of internal weakness, its lack of central organization, as well as the failure of its leaders to control criminal elements, sadists, and psychopaths. Again, this problem is typical of far-right organizations even today. However, the cause of death depends on which scholar you listen to. There is a point of view that the decline was caused by the fact that the clan was no longer necessary. Many of their ideals got internalized in the law. They got their desegregation and Jim Crow. Rebecca Latimer Felton was an American writer, lecturer, and equal rights activist. She became the first woman to serve in the United States Senate, though she only served for 1 day. In 1897, she said that if it takes a lynching to protect woman's dearest possession from drunken, ravening then I say lynch 1,000 a week if it becomes necessary. Felton was all about equal rights between the genders, not the races. The genesis of the second clan is a fascinating story. The organization was founded in 1915 in Georgia by aforementioned William Joseph Simmons. And while Simmons relied on documents from the original clan and memories of a handful of surviving veterans, the revived organization was heavily based on the wildly popular Hollywood movie The Birth of a Nation. The film was hugely influential and innovative, pioneering many cinematic techniques. It was 3 hours long, the longest movie ever made at the time. It had to be shown in 2 parts and featured an intermission. Its plot, part fiction and part history, was complex, chronicling the assassination of Abraham Lincoln by John Wilkes Booth and the relationship of 2 families in the Civil War and Reconstruction eras over the course of several years. The Ku Klux Klan was presented as a heroic force. Black men, many of whom were played by white actors in blackface, were portrayed as unintelligent and sexually aggressive towards white women. The Birth of a Nation was the first American motion picture to be screened in the White House, where it was viewed by President Woodrow Wilson. It was also a movie that essentially invented the popular image of the Ku Klux Klan. The burning of crosses? The original clan didn't do that. The iconic white robes? Nope. These attributes were introduced in the film. They were created by Hollywood. While some early Klansmen did supposedly wear white, and later Klan mythology would claim they dressed up as Confederate ghosts, this might have been a retcon. In reality, early Klansmen drew on folk traditions of carnival, circus, Mardi Gras. They wore gigantic animal horns, fake beards, coonskin caps. They imitated French accents or barnyard animals. They played guitars to serenade their victims, like racist sirens. That's quite a picture, isn't it? It's certainly more aesthetically intriguing than a boring white robe. Some Klansmen wore pointed hats like wizards in fantasy novels. Some wore everyday winter hoods, pillowcases, or floor sacks on their heads. These were the means of hiding their identities. Many early Klansmen also wore blackface to mock their victims. The Invisible Empire. The original clan was supposed to be a covert organization. These don't usually have standardized uniforms. and this lack of formal uniform allowed for plausible deniability. Klan apologist John H. Christie, a former Georgia representative, testified to Congress in 1871. Sometimes mischievous boys who want to have some fun go on a masquerading frolic to scare the Negroes, but they do not interrupt them, do not hurt them in any way. Stories are exaggerated, and it keeps up the impression among the Negroes that there really is a Ku Klux organization. The father of the second Klan, William J. Simmons, was a physician, a teacher, and a huge weirdo. His hobby was organizing secret societies and fraternities. He himself was a member of 15 of them, including the Masons and the Knights Templar, as well as 2 churches. If he was alive today, he would be a D&D dungeon master, or he would host a heavily modded Minecraft server. He would write Final Fantasy fanfiction, or perhaps make mods for Hearts of Iron 4, some sort of an intersection of identity, aesthetics, and narrative. But in the early 20th century, these basic pleasures were unavailable to Simmons. But the movies were a thing. The Birth of a Nation inspired him to create a yet another fraternity. He wrote a pamphlet, The Cloran, hired publicists, and launched a PR campaign that attracted tens of thousands of new members. Then he started selling merch, like a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer. He sold the Klan identity like it was a common commodity. When The Birth of a Nation was shown in Atlanta in December of that year, Simmons and his new Klansmen paraded to the theater in robes and pointed hoods. Some arrived on robed horses, just like in the movie. These mass parades would become another hallmark of the new Klan that had not existed in the original Reconstruction-era KKK on account of it being a secret organization. For the second Klan, anonymity was just a bonus, not a goal. They had a central HQ, employed full-time professional recruiters. The Klan made its profit through initiation fees and costume sales. Yes, the organization made good money manufacturing and selling what is essentially cosplay LARP gear. Robes and hoods, the image and the aesthetic. In 1921, the Klan opened the Gates City Manufacturing Company in Atlanta to mass-produce regalia imitating the designs from the film. Each high-ranking officer of the Klan, each exalted Cyclops, would be issued a copy of the Klan catalog of official robes and banners, printed in color with excellent illustrations. The catalog advertised all the standard factory-made outfits. Let's have a look. This model is called Imperial Representative, made of satin, trimmed with military braid and embroidered in silk cord and tassels. The combination of colors, green, black and red, makes this model easy to adapt for the needs of black nationalists, Middle Eastern ethnicities, as well as Lithuanians. It truly is universal. White ethnostate for all the peoples of the world. The price for this phenomenal outfit is $35. Adjusting for inflation, that would be $448 2019 dollars. This model is called simply Klansman. Klansman is what we call a stock version, a classic but more than a little bland compared to other entries, made of cotton jeans, white cotton cord and one cotton tassel. Unadjusted price is only $5, quite affordable. This is Clavalier, made of Duretta cloth sateen cape and collar, cotton cord and one cotton tassel. Price just $7. Grand Dragon. Oh, that one is simply fabulous. In the Klan nomenclature, Grand Dragon is a leader of a realm, which is an entire state. Price? $40. Expensive? Yes, but a leader needs to stand out. This is called Hydra. Hydras are lieutenants. 8 of them would assist a Grand Dragon in managing the matters of a state. Very prestigious position. This unit costs $10. There is an optional enhanced version made out of better materials for $20. Please specify the material desired when ordering. King Kleagle. A Kleagle is a clan recruiter and a community organizer. I am assuming that King Kleagle is probably some sort of an ascended version of normal Kleagle. Price each $24. National Lecturer. A lecturer is a keeper of clan lore. The nomenclature refers to this position as Clockard, but the catalog just calls it a lecturer. Price $25. Bandmaster. I'm guessing this is an outfit for parade musicians. Very fancy and quite expensive, $25. Bandman is a slightly different variant of the same model. Black is a more universal color, suitable for most people. Note that both of these outfits offer less anonymity. The mask doesn't completely cover the face. But I suppose this sacrifice is required to play a musical instrument. The things you do for art, am I right? The parades and demonstrations the second clan was famous for, and the old black and white photos obviously failed to communicate this. They must have been quite colorful. The 2016 presidential election marked the moment when the Zoomer generation began to get politically engaged in large numbers. A quick glance at Twitter feeds and YouTube channels confirms that political and social outlook of Zoomers and younger millennials is heavily informed by pop culture they are marinated in. I suppose it's fair to say that every generation is like this, but the modern experience is unique because it's based on mediums and ways of expression that have never before existed in human history. Certainly, when Gen Xers were growing up, there was no Skyrim, there were no Ulfric memes, there were no memes at all, and there was no social media to proliferate them in. There was no Kaiserreich, no ironic commie-punk of Red Alert 2 and 3. I think Evangelion might have been a thing. I swear to God, every new generation is an Evangelion generation. Its themes of loneliness, friendship, and involuntary eschatony monetization are truly eternal. And of course there is Fallout New Vegas, a benevolent neo-reactionary technocrat Mr. House versus a fascist Caesar's Legion, a conventional reactionary and conservative organization engaged in battle with a post-atomic version of modern American neoliberalism represented by the New California Republic. In the entire far right, there are only a few hundred people who can navigate the complicated space of neo-reactionary jargon and terminology. But the language of pop culture is spoken by everyone. Pop culture creates a visual aesthetic that is incorporated into left-wing and right-wing identity politics. And that is entirely normal. That is how it always has been. 90 years ago, the clan was selling identities in a way that is similar to how modern game-as-a-service RPGs and MOBAs sell character skins. Commoditization, manufacture, and sale of identities is, in fact, a trad thing to do. And it might be a feature of any effective political organization, whatever its ideology is. Compared to the original, the second iteration of the clan was a lot more organized. The official rhetoric changed as well. The new organization was anti-Catholic, anti-Semitic, anti-Irish. They didn't like new arrivals from Europe, Italians, Southern Europeans, Eastern Europeans, Jews, Russians, Lithuanians, and obviously the clan was anti-black. Its ideology can be described as WASP ethno-nationalism. The organization was shockingly successful. Within the first 6 months of active national recruitment, clan membership increased by 85,000. At its peak in the mid-1920s, the clan claimed to include about 15% of the nation's eligible population, approximately 4 or 5 million men. These numbers are borderline fantastic. Nowadays, there is a lot of talk about a relatively new phenomenon called the alt-right. According to research published in 2018 by UVA's Institute for Family Studies, roughly 5.64% of America's 198 million of non-Hispanic whites have beliefs consistent with the alt-right's worldview. And while these numbers are not negligible, they are unimpressive compared to what the second clan was able to achieve, at least in relative terms. However, its success was ultimately a temporary thing. 10 years later, in the 1940s, the clan was dead. The cause of death was the same as always: criminal behavior by its leaders, internal divisions, and violent insultdom. David Stevenson, a KKK big shot, was convicted for the abduction, rape, and murder of Marge Oberholzer, a young government employee who ran a state program to combat adult illiteracy. Oberholzer claimed that Stevenson had refused to give her medical attention unless she agreed to marry him. This story absolutely destroyed the membership numbers. The second clan was successful because it sold its members an appealing identity, an aesthetic, and a fantasy. Klansmen were supposed to be knights. Creepy rape murder wasn't really a part of the fantasy, at least not for most of them. This was the end of the second incarnation. The Ku Klux Klan name was used by many independent local groups opposing desegregation in the 50s and 70s. Several members of the Klan were convicted of murder of civil rights workers in Mississippi in 1964, as well as children in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham in 1963. But the Third Klan never really achieved much. Some scholars and ex-Klansmen point to the fourth or even fifth incarnation of the Klan in the 70s and 80s, with a focus on racist spirituality. The Christian tradition was merged with race science, resulting in something called Christian identity. These organizations and micro-movements failed to gain prominence and are interesting primarily to historians who specialize in this sort of thing. The collapse of the USSR in 1991 marked the end of the Cold War. Communism was no longer a relevant enemy. The far-right culture and the Klan, whatever was left of it anyway, was forced to change yet again. Now it was all about Islam.
Like the good old days after 9/11.
In April 2012, a man called Glendon Scott Crawford contacted two Jewish organizations in upstate New York with requests to get in touch with Mossad. Crawford wanted to offer them a new type of technology that he claimed could be used by Israel to defeat its enemies while they slept. The man was a card-carrying member of the Klan, and by enemies he meant Palestinians. Ideology is a fickle bitch. Turns out that he somehow managed to amass enough amateur knowledge in radiation technology to feasibly construct a remote-controlled mobile industrial X-ray capable of delivering a deadly dosage of radiation with a keystroke on a laptop connected to the internet. The mad scientist described himself as a combination of Forrest Gump and Darth Vader, and referred to those he intended to kill as medical waste. Crawford contacted the loyal White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan in North Carolina, looking for help building this radiation weapon. At the time, he was unaware that the group's imperial wizard, Chris Baker, was a federal informant, cooperating with the FBI in exchange for lenience on federal charges. As of 2016, researchers estimate that there are just over 30 active Klan groups existing in the United States, with about 130 chapters. Estimates of total collective membership range from about 3,000 to 8,000 people. That's quite pathetic. The Kuck Klux Klan held a rally in Charlottesville on July 8, 2017, a little more than a month prior to the infamous white nationalist demonstration that took place in the same city. The Grand Dragon of that group, the very same Chris Baker, was unable to attend the rally as he was not permitted to leave a two-county area of North Carolina under the terms of his bail for stabbing his fellow Klan member back in December of the same year. A loud but ultimately non-violent assembly involved 30 to 40 Klansmen, as well as around 1,000 counter-protesters. The history of the Klan after its second incarnation is a very long, wet fart.